All right, it's 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday, the 16th of September, and we are commencing future Melbourne committee meeting. I welcome councillors, management and members of the public attending tonight's meeting, both in person and virtually. We are meeting on the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country, and I respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we govern, the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung and Boonwurrung Boonwurrung peoples of the Kulin, and pay respect to their elders past and present. We acknowledge and honour the unbroken spiritual, cultural and political connection they have maintained to this unique place for more than 2,000 generations. We accept the invitation in the Uluru Statement from the Heart and are committed to working together to build a better future. This meeting is being streamed live and the recording will be published on Council's website by close of business tomorrow. The unconfirmed minutes of the meeting will be published, will also be available from the Council's website as soon as practicable. I request that all mobile phones be turned off or to silent for the duration of the meeting. Apologies have been received from Councillors Leilu and Councillor Louis. Moving on to agenda item 2, disclosure of conflicts of interest. If any councillor has either a general or material conflict of interest as defined in the Local Government Act 2020 in relation to a matter to be considered by committee, please disclose the type and nature of your interest prior to consideration of the item. We move to agenda item 3, confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting, and a call on a councillor to move a motion adopting the minutes of open meeting number 15 held on Tuesday, the 2nd of September. Thank you, Councillor Gladys Liu. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Raf Camillo. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. I declare that carried unanimously. Those minutes are accepted. We move on to agenda item 4, matters arising from the minutes of the previous meeting. I ask councillors whether there are any matters arising from the minutes of the previous meeting. Anybody wishes to raise? No. Move to submissions and correspondence. The following submissions have been received in accordance with the Council's governance rules in relation to agenda item 6.1 planning application TP-2025-127 for the property 509 St Kilda Road, Melbourne. We have requests to speak from Jennifer Dorwood and from Kelly Burns from Urban Planning Collective. And we've received items of correspondence from Jennifer as well as Ian Brown. In relation to agenda item 6.4, City of Melbourne housing targets, we have a request to speak from Honorary Councillor Chris Thrum. And submitters will be invited to address the committee at the time of the relevant agenda item is considered. You'll have 3 minutes to address the committee. And we will be asking that you adhere to that time limit. Now, can I check, is there anybody who wanted to speak to any of the agenda items before us this evening or submitted an item of correspondence and you have not heard your name called out in the list I just ran through? Good. In that case, we will move on to agenda item 5, public questions. A 15-minute period will be provided at the beginning and end of this meeting for members of the public to ask questions. Members of the public may either submit questions in writing or register to ask a question in person or live via audio link. Questions should not be greater than 90 seconds in duration. And a reminder, members of the public, that this is not a time to make submissions. As at 10 a.m. today, there have been 6 public questions registered, 4 of which will be asked in person. I note that in reading out these questions, we are not attesting to the veracity or factual nature of any statements made. Now, according to... here we go. I now call on Councillor Gladys Liu to read out a written question as Community and City Services Portfolio Lead. Over to you, Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This submission was from Lucas, and it says, I wish to address the slow response of Council to resident complaints regarding faulty and misaligned advertising billboard spotlights. When damaged or misaligned, These installations shine a light of high intensity onto and into private residence. Outdoor areas are unusable and light bleed into interior rooms in spite of drawn blinds, leave bedrooms illuminated throughout the night. Nothing short of complete blackout blinds in an interior will alleviate the problem, and for those in rental housing and or fixed incomes, this is not an excusable option. The Council's community wellbeing representatives have taken a laissez-faire approach to repeated requests for assistance, blaming a lack of billboard owner response to queries. This leaves renters and owner residents without recourse. With council ever eager to encourage people to come back into the city to bolster struggling local businesses post-COVID, is it willing to force those who chose to call the city home and utilize those businesses the most out due to lack of concern for their health? Well, thank you for raising this issue, Lucas, and I really feel for you, and I want to thank you for your feedback on faulty and misaligned advertising billboard spotlights. And your feedback is really valuable as Council takes the health and well-being of our residents extremely seriously. For context, City of Melbourne environmental health officers investigate all allegations of nuisance, such as the light pollution, under the Public Health and Wellbeing Act. These investigations may include interviews, after-hour site visits, and liaising with both the resident and the owners of the light source. If an issue is found to be dangerous to health or offensive, they will act to remediate the nuisance. This process can be complex and take time to complete. We do apologize for any delays you may have experienced in the investigation of this matter. Sarah Annels, health manager, will contact you tomorrow to discuss your concerns with the investigation and identify any possible solutions.
Thank you, Councillor Gladys Liu. I now invite Anastasia Beasley to ask a question. Welcome to Town Hall, Anastasia. Please make your way to the lectern if you're able.
Hello, I have a question about the SCCP review. So, AI replicates human decision-making processes at supercomputer speed with no audit trail to log who gets tracked and why. We can only train it on past crime statistics, which reflect historic systemic biases that have led to the overrepresentation of underserved demographics in our prisons. So they don't always increase the safety for everybody. Given that facial recognition has been banned for the federal and state police because it's impossible to have adequate transparency and oversight, what will council do to support overcriminalised groups to participate in transparency and accountability audits going forward?
Thanks for your interest in this matter, Anastasia. My notes suggest that either Rick Kwasek, Dean Robinson or Kelsey Sully may wish to respond to this question. But before we come to you, Councillor Camillo, did you want to make any observation? Yep. Do you want to just turn your microphone on, Councillor Camillo?
Sorry. Did you have another question too? No. Okay.
Do I sit down?
You can stay there so we can properly address you in our response. This is Rick Kwasek, Head of Infrastructure here at the City of Melbourne. Over to you, Rick.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you for the question, Anastasia. In relation to our Safe City Camera program, there was a notice of motion on the 6th of May which looked for us to review the policy and the manual that we use to actually govern that process. It was actually intended to come up this evening, but had to be deferred because we're actually undertaking a series of engagement with various parties. The first phase of the program really looks to modify the policy to allow us to use the policy for the purpose of administering the local law. It actually doesn't include the component of AI that you've referred to. That particular element will be considered in a future review of the policy, and it requires a fair bit of work for us to actually evaluate how it and in what form it will take. So in this particular consideration of the policy update, it is really there for us to actually use the Safe City Camera program to assist us in administering the local law. I hope that answers partly your question. Thank you.
Again, thanks for your interest in this issue, Anastasia, and as you can hear, it's something that will be coming up at Council soon, so I hope you'll stay engaged and keep asking us the questions you want to ask in this area. All right, I now invite Jack Land to ask a question. Great to see you back at Town Hall. Jake.
Thank you. At the last Future Melbourne Committee meeting held on the 2nd of September past, I asked 3 specific questions regarding the building and renovation work of the restaurant in Fitzroy Gardens. While the Lord Mayor responded to my questions, he did not specifically answer any of my questions. So I ask again. The first question was, will the council order rectification forthwith? The second question was, does the council consider the construction work that has been done minor alterations? The third question was, if the public are paying for this construction, what was the cost? Thank you.
Thanks, Jake, and thanks for your ongoing interest in this matter. I'm sorry if you felt that my answer last time didn't go to all the detail you were looking for. I might actually invite Rick Kwasek or Emma from the property team to address your matters regarding rectification, minor alterations, and what was the third one?
The third question was if the public are paying for this.
Oh, that's right, the
what's
public
the
cost. Yep, okay, over to you, Rick.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and through
Thanks.
you, and thank you for the question, Mr. Land. The View Group were required to undertake the much-needed refurbishment work of the structure. These works went through Council's planning process, and there was an assessment of the proposal through the planning process. It also required heritage approval and received a heritage permit in May 2024. So in terms of the structure itself, we're not proposing to issue any rectification works. The works that were undertaken by View Group were seen as appropriate in the location. Regarding the second question, the works were not considered minor works. And the third question is the cost of the works were actually covered by View Group, so were not council funds that were used to rectify the building. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Rick. All right, our next question is from an external asker, so I'm going to call on Councillor Camillo to read out a written question as our safety and cleaning portfolio lead. Over to you, Councillor Raf Camillo.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So the question is, would the council please consider adding resources to better enforcing busking regulations in the city? We frequently have issues with buskers ignoring the cut-off times for amplified busking, especially around the State Library. There are both licensed and unlicensed buskers that will show up with mics and amps and start playing music at 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. around the state library. When we call the council customer service line, they have usually already closed by 10 p.m. And if we call the police tells us that they won't bother with, as it doesn't pretend violent crime and already have their hands full with a lot of other problems. Besides several large apartments building next to this area, there are also hotels and student housing nearby, and this is causing us sleep deprivation and making the area undesirable for long-term residents like my family. I would ask that the City Council consider extending the hours of the Council customer service team to 11 p.m. on Sunday to Thursday and till midnight on Friday, Saturday, so that it gives time to staff to confront any baskets going beyond the regulated times, or could private security be used to enforce these regulations? So, we have received less than 10 complaints in 2025 about noise from busking outside of hours at the State Library, 2 of which were received yesterday. The local laws team usual hours is around 10:50 p.m. We will look to schedule to the team to work overtime to see if we can identify the people and communicate the rules. I'd like to thank this question because we need to create a better balance to the city. We need to understand we have residents, we have buskers. It's a big complex city, and it's still a very valid question. So the council is going to investigate this further. How can we ameliorate that? But thank you, Bob, for your question.
Thank you, Councillor Camillo. And look, I might just add to your response by saying how proud we are as a city to have such a vibrant busking community here. Indeed, Melbourne is renowned for the quality and the breadth of the on-street performances that we have, and it brings a lot of colour and vibrancy and energy to our city. And indeed, there's been changes around the city in recent years which have made circumstances more challenging for buskers, not least of which being the fact that people just don't carry the same amount of cash around in their pockets as they once did. And so, buskers don't get those incidental type donations that they once did. There is tap payment technology in place, but, we haven't quite seen the same volume of payments as the new technology is taking hold. So that's a challenge for us as a city to keep an eye on. And certainly the broader point there is we need to have a well-regulated busking environment, but we also want to preserve something that's really special about Melbourne as well. All right, the next question is from none other than Tony Penner from the South Bank Residents Association. Tony, a reminder that your question should be no greater than 90 seconds.
Of course. We would never go over, would we? This is not so much a question, but to merely highlight some cleanliness issues to the council. Okay. Lord Mayor, you're often spruiking everything you are doing to clean the city, but from my observations, I'm struggling to see much change. I walk everywhere around South Bank in the city, averaging 15 kilometres a day, so I see a lot. I have made over 150 reports to the council website. Go back. Surely I must be the number one reporter. Firstly, I have noted they are no longer mixing recycling with landfill when emptying the street bins. Thank you for addressing that. That was the last time I spoke here. What I've got there on the picture is a picture of a rubbish bin that I saw on Saturday, 12 o'clock on Elizabeth Street, next to Collins. It was overflowing. I reported that through the council website. Next slide. Midnight, still there, hasn't been emptied. Unfortunately, my experience with reporting rubbish bins, they never get acted upon. And then, of course, at 1 a.m. in the morning, I got an email saying your thing has now been addressed, i.e. at midnight is when they empty the rubbish bins. That's the standard routine of rubbish bins. Surely it's not the first time I've reported rubbish bins, but I've never seen a rubbish bin get emptied when it's reported. Surely we can access those outside of the system. Who's charging these things? Next slide. There's some graffiti which is political thing about Israel and Palestine. I reported that. Council's got a policy 24 hours. 24 hours later, it was still there. Ironically, I sent through these pictures today and I got an email just this afternoon saying it's now gone. Next slide. That's not showing. There it goes. Surely, I think the Bunnings paint shop can do a better job at matching paint than the guys that we've got. And I'm assuming that we're employing professionals, I'm assuming. Next slide. There's another example. Next slide. Now, I want to take you a walk along the Sandridge Bridge and the environments. Just flick through these slides. Keep going, just keep going. Yep.
These have all been taken in the last week, have
Yeah,
they,
just
Tony?
in the last 3 or 4 days.
Okay.
So the point that I'm trying to make there is there's some popular, frequently targeted areas around the city for graffiti. We know that. I wonder, do the members of public need to report that for it to be cleaned? Would it not be possible to have the team visit these sites regularly to certainly inspect? Why can't we be proactive about this? We know which sites get targeted frequently. This is one such example. If I were to make a report for each of those, it would take me hours using your system to report them all. Next slide. Here we go. This is where they guys have cleaned the paint off. They've not done a very good job at cleaning it off. You know, the results is next slide. There we go again. I've reported that 6 months ago. You know, it's still sitting there. Keep going. There's an example where the heat has damaged that. You might want to note that at the bottom of Sandridge Bridge. Next slide. And there we go, the red stairs. I reported that months ago. It's still there. You know, I get a report saying that we will action this in the next 5 days. I don't even get a reply to say we can't action it. You know, I've got some that are closed off and nothing's happened. Someone needs to reach out. If they're not going to clean it, they need to reach out and say, hey, we've got your report. We can't do it. Just don't close it and hope I don't question it 6 months later. That's basically it. Who are we holding them to account? Are we holding these people to account? Yeah.
Yep. All right, stay standing, Tony. We're going to get a response. You mentioned you thought you were the number one reporter of
you might be
rubbish.
You might be Lord Mayor.
No,
you might be number one. I might be number two.
We've got a portfolio lead, Raf Camilla, who is officially number one. I think you're number two. I think I'm number three. So there you go. Let's go back to number one, though.
Tony, I think they create a special line just because I was reporting and disturbing too much people in council, because every time I put the nose outside of my house, I'm reporting. One thing we research now at the moment, I don't know if you know, the question before about CCTV cameras has opportunity for us with AI to identify litter and graffiti, but this is something that comes after. I feel your frustration every single day, okay? I know what you're reporting because I'm experiencing that, but at the same time, the city of Melbourne has never been working so hard with that. So has something there that we need to find what's not happening. Maybe you need to put more people to walk around just to identify, as you say, have an early intervention to avoid a lot of complaints. But at the same time, we need the community to go in there and report. At the moment, we have not enough of Raphael's and Tony Pennas that go in there. But I feel your frustration on why we need to be doing that. Okay, has room for improvement in here. I think I just gotta give you some figures. Okay, that's street cleaning waste removed by tons. Just give an example from financial in 2024, 5,457 to 609.29, 27% increase. Street cleaning service requests. We went to 17,000 to 19,000. Service request resolution time average used to be 19 hours, now is 14 hours. Graffiti removed by square meters. Used to be 120,000 square meters last year, now is 141. Graffiti removal service requests 17,000 to 2655. So we increased 54% of the requests. Service request resolution time average 2 days for graffiti, and now is 1.2. So the figures are showing that we're doing more, but we need to understand why is increasing graffiti. Why is this? This is the big challenge for us. As what you say, is constantly out there. Why this we're trying to identify. Another thing is, I think we have a problem with civic pride in this city. Why this? We have a fun people throwing rubbish in the floor. With the overflowing rubbish, I agree with you. We need to do better. We already investigating to have new bins. We already in the process to remove and install new bins. Is going to be soon. But I thank you for you to coming here. It's a process. We never put so much money in there, but it has room for improvement. And I'm not going to keep justify for you. We can do better. I just got to ask if Rick would like to speak a little bit before I do that.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Camillo, and through you, Lord Mayor. And thanks for the bringing this again to our attention. It's really important, and I'm sure we can do better. But there are some of the images you've provided or shown indicated graffiti removal over waterways, and that provides a significant challenge for us. We need to coordinate that work with Parks Victoria, and there is a process around that. There were some images I saw on Princess Bridge and Sandridge Bridge that have heritage implications, so we have to work with Heritage Victoria to remove those. Some of those take some time to run through that process. I do appreciate what you've brought to our attention. Just in relation to the bins, we're undertaking a strategic review of the bins, and we'll be implementing and changing over all of our public bins to solar compactor bins, which will actually give us notifications electronically around when they're full and when they need to be emptied. So hopefully that will try and pick up some of the concerns you've been raising around the bins not being emptied. This will give us electronic signals when they're full. So that will just assist us with our processes and provide us with more information around the hotspot locations that we need to address. But thank you again for sending those through to us.
I was in this forum several years ago when they were introducing the big belly bins, which do exactly that. They were meant to send the signals, and there was a big hoo-ha in this forum. They were already meant to be having signals that tell us when they're full. This is not new.
Sorry, Tony, it's not a debate, but you make good points. And CEO, did you want to add anything to what's been said so far?
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you for your question, Tony, and appreciate the time and effort that you've undertaken in capturing those photos. I think the one thing that I wanted to highlight was the fact that in the last year we removed more than 140,000 square metres of graffiti from across the city, which is actually the largest amount of graffiti removed in any 1 year in the City of Melbourne's history. So we certainly are doing an enormous amount to try to respond to the important issue of graffiti in our city. The other thing I'd say is that we're also working very closely with Snaps and Solve. Graffiti removal is the first service off the rank in terms of automating service requests that can come through to us and then straight to our contractor, so that there's not a clunky way in which those service requests can be entered. So, we are looking at preventative measures in terms of working with the Department of Justice and other groups to look at what can be done to prevent graffiti. It is something that this council takes incredibly seriously. It's one of those frustrating things where you can clean a bridge in its entirety one day, and in 1 hour someone can walk through and tag the entire bridge, and you're back to where you started. So it's not an easy issue to resolve, but it is certainly something that our team are leaning in on and trying to do everything we can to ensure that our city is presenting as best as it possibly can at all times. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thanks, and I'm just going to quickly to that as well. This might sound like a crazy brave thing to say, but I want this council to be judged by the job we do in cleaning up the city around proper rubbish removal and the cleaning up of the unsightly tagging and graffiti. We've created a new portfolio of city safety and cleaning because we wanted to not just signal, but actually put more effort into this than council ever has before. I do think we've got a great team on the ground with Rick Kwasek and Vince Macalino really going after this in ways we have never done before and putting in more effort than we ever have done before. Are we there yet? No, we're not. But I do think we are moving in the right direction. There are significant hurdles. You know, people see tags around the city and they think it's City of Melbourne. Often it's on Victorian government assets or other major utility organisations' assets or just private assets. We have got clean-up agreements in place with many major asset owners. I want to see that process going further. For example, having very positive conversations at the moment with the Roads Minister Melissa Horn around how we can get City Road cleaned up and some of those other Vic Roads assets around the city. Think about some of those Vic Track assets as well. They're not in the state that Melburnians want to see, so we're again trying to pursue partnerships there. I do want you to know, Tony, that not a day goes by when there aren't conversations going on at the most senior levels of this organisation about how Melbourne lifts its game in terms of cleaning things up. So watch this space. For your part, keep the pressure on us, Tony. I love getting these questions. I really do, because we can do better as a city, and your vigilance in keeping the pressure on is actually a big help. So let's keep going. Let's get the job done. Let's do it together. All right. Let's move on, because the time for questions has well and truly expired. So we move on to agenda item 6, reports from management. And I'm going to call on the Deputy Lord Mayor, Rashina Campbell, to assume the role of chair of the meeting. Over to you, Deputy Lord Mayor Rashina Campbell.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. There is one planning matter for consideration tonight. Agenda item 6.1, planning application TP 2025-127, property 509 St Kilda Road, Melbourne. Would councillors like a presentation on this agenda item? No. In that case, I move to our first submitter. I call on Jennifer Dorwood. Is Jennifer here tonight? Who has requested the opportunity to address the committee in relation to this matter. Jennifer, I remind you to speak for no more than 3 minutes.
I won't take 3 minutes, that's fine. Thank you, Council. Given the proposed operating hours for the gym on this site, which at 5:09 are from 6:30am to 7:30pm Monday to Saturday, they fall outside the Council's standard guidelines for acceptable operating hours in this mixed-use zone, which are 7am for weekdays and 8am for the weekends. And considering the proximity of this gym to sensitive residential dwellings right next door where people will be asleep at 505 St Kilda Road, how does Council justify approval of operating hours that begin prior to 7am, which the proposed is 6:30am, particularly in light of the 33 objections received, and acknowledge the risk of sleep disturbance, which is obviously affecting health and wellbeing of these residents, and the need to uphold, obviously, residential amenity?
Thank you for your submission, Jennifer. You can take your seat. I am actually going to ask a question of our Director of Planning and Building, Julian Edwards, or someone else if he would like to delegate to them to respond to your submission.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor, and through you, and thank you for the question being raised, Jennifer. So what's been suggested here in terms of the timeframes are a couple of components. One thing we need to remember here is that the site is actually located within a commercial 1 zone, not within a residential zone. And so what we see in commercial zones are a mixture of uses. So there's commercial, office, retail, could be entertainment. It varies, but you do get a mixture of residential within those locations. And so a different set of noise protocols that are produced by the EPA apply. So they're EPA noise protocols relating to commercial, industry and trade premises and not the actual residential noise requirements. The other thing I might just add is that the noise and vibration guidelines, which I think were also mentioned as well, they relate to construction noise. Which can often be a bit louder because it's often out in the open where you've got machinery and the like happening. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you very much, Julian.
Thank you.
I now call on Kelly Burns from Urban Planning Collective. Kelly, I remind you to speak for no more than 3 minutes.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor, and good evening, councillors, Deputy Lord Mayor and councillors. Our client Ron Jiang has owned the property at 509 for 7 years, and over that time has made a number of improvements to the building to meet the tenants' needs. It accommodates tenants such as AIA, Webjet, Sunken and the Italian Consulate, who are important to the St Kilda Road commercial precinct. The properties and the tenants' contribution to the economic and social vitality of the area is significant. The tenants need employee incentives to attract and maintain staff satisfaction, well known as being critical to successful and sustained post-pandemic business recovery. There are no public gymnasiums close by, so adding one to the building will make a positive contribution to the building and the area. I should note it's fully internal to inside of the building. There is no classes or activities which would be undertaken outside of the building. The application has been carefully assessed by the council's planners and objectors, and our client has worked hard to overcome the objector concerns. We are confident that the gym will successfully integrate into the highly built up and commercial context of the St Kilda Road and commercial road environs. We are also confident that it will provide a well-used service and that it will serve to connect like-minded people from the local area, not just from within the building. It's to be a BFT franchise. It's open to anybody to use. Our client would like to thank council officers for their assistance with this application and is pleased to read the recommendation for approval. We commend the planning application to you and urge you to support the proposal as detailed in the planning officer's report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kelly. You can resume your seat unless councillors had any questions. No? All right, thank you. I'm going to ask for a motion to be put on the screen. Thank you. I will move that motion and I'm calling on a councillor to second that motion. Thank you, Councillor Dr. Ball, and I will now speak to the motion. The planning application before us relates to the property at 509 St Kilda Road, Melbourne, and as you've heard from Julian Edwards, that is a site located in Commercial 1 zone. The applicant seeks permission for the use of a ground floor tenancy located within the existing multi-storey building that is currently a cafe to be used as a gymnasium. Planning officers support the planning application subject to conditions which are detailed in attachment 3. I'll speak later to some of those conditions, but what we have heard from the community, both in written submissions and then here tonight in our committee by way of oral submission, is community concerns, particularly around noise. We've also received submissions around parking and traffic congestion. I want to begin by acknowledging those submissions and thank all of the people who have taken the time to make written submissions as well as the objectors to this planning application. I've had the benefit of those objections and submissions, and I'm grateful to our community for taking the time to share their experiences and views with us. In my view, this application appropriately responds to the relevant conditions under the Melbourne Planning Scheme, but particularly, in my view, the conditions proposed by our planning officers address many of the objectors' concerns. The proposed use will complement the existing office, retail and residential activities in the area, introducing a facility that promotes health and wellbeing and an active community, something this council certainly supports. But importantly, the permit conditions regulate patron numbers and hours of operation, as well as seeking to minimise noise disturbance to surrounding residents. The gym would operate fitness classes from 6:30am to 7:30pm, Monday to Saturday, with limitations on the number of patrons, including those waiting to commence a class. The recommendations also refer to the endorsed acoustic report. That must be implemented at no cost and be to the satisfaction of the responsible authority prior to commencing this use as a gymnasium. The noise generated by the premises must at all times comply with the requirements of the relevant EPA protocol. And I also note that no amplified live music or entertainment is permitted on the facility without the prior written consent of the responsible authority. No loudspeaker, amplifier, relay or other audio equipment, with the exception of fire alarms and associated devices, may be installed or used outside the facility at any time. And the responsible authority also, at just cause, may request a further acoustic report, and where required, the recommendations of that report must be implemented by the permit holder to the satisfaction of the responsible authority. The reason I've taken the time to detail some of those conditions at length is because, in my view, they do respond to the concerns raised by objectors. And it's for that reason that I support the recommendation of our planning officers. I thank them for all of their work, in particular in developing these conditions, and I commend this motion to my fellow councillors. Over to you, Councillor Dr. Ball.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I'm very happy to second this recommendation from Council, and I thank all of our officers who have worked on this, and for those who have made submissions on it. Compared with the cafe that existed prior, which I presume may have played music with the doors and the windows open, this will be a different undertaking altogether. The applicants have amended their proposal in response to the objections to reduce the patron numbers and to devise a patron management plan to mitigate amenity impacts. So these group fitness classes which are planned for the gym, of course it's not just individuals working out, as the Deputy Lord Mayor has mentioned. Fitness classes typically entail music which can be loud, typically 65 to 80 decibels. I note that the acoustic insulation and the boarded up windows with the cavities that remain from that boarding up filled with that acoustic insulation, combined with self-closing automatic doors, will lessen the noise escaping from within the premises, such that this acoustic report deems that these risk of adverse noise impacts, especially in the context of being on a busy main road and under a helicopter flight path, will be very low, according to the acoustic report. This endorsed report also notes that dropping gym weights can be just as loud as pumping music. And while this is not a 24-hour gym, as our submitted this evening has noted, it does open at 6:30 a.m. However, the report deems that the impact on the nearest bedrooms, which are not adjacent, will be comfortably within EPA noise protocol requirements. So please note that the two recommendations contained in the acoustic report must be implemented. And so if the permit is approved and once the gym is fitted out and its sound system installed, the operators must engage a qualified acoustic consultant to calibrate their sound system and ensure it does not exceed regulated noise limits set by the EPA noise protocol. This is a proposition in a commercial zone. It's deemed to comply with the planning scheme. It's therefore right that this committee should issue a permit and approve the permit, and of course continue its role in enforcement. So I recommend it to you.
Thank you, Councillor Dr. Ball. Are there any other speakers to the motion? No. In that case, I will put the motion to the vote. Could all those in favour please raise your hands? That has passed unanimously. That concludes the statutory planning section of the meeting. There are 3 further reports from management for consideration. I now move to agenda item 6.2, Domestic Animal Management Plan 2026 to 2029. Would councillors like a presentation on this agenda item? No. In that case, I'm going to seek to have a motion put on the screen. Do I have a mover for that motion? Thank you, Councillor Griffiths, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Dr. Ball. Over to you, Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. It's my pleasure to be speaking to this motion tonight, and what I hope is a fairly straightforward piece of information before us. But the reason why it is straightforward, the reason why it should be relatively simple for us to deal with tonight, is because of the large amount of work that has gone into it, both from council officers and also in communications and submissions from the public. And so I'd like to thank both of those groups to Dean and Tom and all of our team here who've put a power of work into it. Thank you for all of the consultation that you've done and for your thoughtful work that's gone into this. And again, I'll speak a bit more in a moment about the public responses, but it's been really fantastic to see such a high level of engagement with our community around what is a really important matter. The Domestic Animal Management Plan is something that we're required to review every 4 years and to make sure that we have up to date. And as we've commented a few times in this chamber over the last couple of years, we've seen, especially during COVID, but also following that, a much greater increase in the number of pets that are owned in the city, and we want to recognise just how important those pets are to the well-being, mental health of the people who live here, but it's also obviously appropriate that we have the right guidelines and right parameters around those ownerships, and that we make clear what council's responsibilities are as well on that front, and that's exactly what this Domestic Animal Management Plan is designed to do. As I said, there was a large amount of contributions from the general public when the discussion paper was issued. We had 973 contributions, 15 written submissions at that stage that allowed us to start the drafting of this draft document that was first issued. And to that, there were another 243 pieces of feedback that were considered as part of the document that we now have coming forward to us for endorsement tonight. And that's led to some really important changes, particularly around dogs and the way that both dog waste is disposed of, but the way that we communicate to the general public about dog on lead and off leash areas. And similarly around some of the changes that were made earlier this year around cat welfare and desexing of cats, and particularly about the importance of council communicating clearly to the general public about what it is that we've been doing around those changes. And I think that's really good to see those changes coming through. And also some really clear submissions around the need for Melbourne to be a pet-friendly city, and I'm sure that that's something that we would want to be seen and be known as, and particularly for more vulnerable members of our community to have access to pet ownership and support for that, and that too is mentioned in this document. So I think it's a much better document for the public submissions, a much better document for all of the work that the team has put in along the way, and I thoroughly encourage all councillors to support it tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. Over to you, Councillor Dr. Ball.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Griffiths. I'm very glad to be able to endorse this report, which is a requirement of all councils every 4 years to consider how they manage dogs and cats, which is particularly the focus of this plan. I thank our staff for all the work they do every single day managing the cats and dogs in this municipality. The important message, in addition to everything that Councillor Griffiths has said, that I want to be sure all cat owners take home tonight is that our cat curfew starts in 2 weeks from tomorrow. 1st of October, there will be a 14-hour cat curfew every night. So it's past time perhaps to start thinking about that if you own a cat. Most cats in our municipality live in apartments and they don't roam, and they're already contained 24/7, which is fantastic. But for those of you who have cats roaming, you'll be needing from the 1st of October to keep it indoors from 6 p.m. at night to 8 a.m. every morning, and start thinking about how to occupy and enrich your cat during these hours if needed. Think about how they will be occupied and how to enrich their environment. And we have lots of advice on this and helpful links on Council's website. It's important to keep your cat indoors to keep it safe. Contained cats live, on average, much, much longer than cats that are roaming. They can't get run over, they can't get attacked by dogs, get in fights with other cats, or catch disease or get pregnant, and they can't get lost either temporarily or forever. Each year, this council catches about 200 roaming cats annually, and on top of this, sadly, roughly 1 dead cat a month that's been killed by traffic. Nobody wants this for their cat. If the monthly dead cat collection, if we can identify them, those cats are returned to their owners, and that's a tragic outcome. Of course, cat curfews and containment, if it comes, is vital to protect our wildlife. I think I've said before, if all of our municipality were Collins Street, this wouldn't be an issue. All the cats would be in their apartments and there's not a lot of biodiversity happening out in the street. But that is not all of our municipality. Despite being the centre of the biggest city in Australia, we are blessed with extensive and very sensitive environmental areas. Royal Park, Fitzroy Gardens, Carlton Gardens, all of our beautiful riverine environments, the Botanic Gardens. These are precious, environmentally sensitive areas, both large, like the ones I've cited, but also very small areas are precious and valuable biodiversity locations that we need to protect from cats. So can I refer you to our website, melbourne.vic.gov.au/cat-containment for all of these resources. I thank our staff for building up these resources and links that you'll find. Cat owners, start thinking about it now if you haven't already, and make some plans for the curfew that starts on the 1st of October. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dr. Ball. Are there any other speakers to this motion? Councillor Camillo.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I will support this motion today, but I just want to remember, and I will ask for the residents of City of Melbourne from the 1st of October to have some leniency with your neighbours in the suburbs, because I don't think it's very easy for you to educate a cat. And if some cats are already older, they have been used to be around. So I just think for this period from 1st of October, is got to have an adaptation process. So just be respectful to each other. They are animals. People cannot just talk with them, lock them in the house. Sometimes as elder people, the cat can escape. Some things happen. People are humans, but we need to remember they're pets too. So just to have some respect, yes, we got to be enforcement laws, but we need to understand that before, for a long period, it didn't have laws that has been enforcement and has animals that had all their lives used to being there. So just some leniency. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Camillo. Would any other councillors like to speak to this motion? Councillor Guest.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Look, I acknowledge there's an awful lot of work that's gone into this particular plan, but I would like to register my disappointment in the component that does equate to a lockup of cats. It strikes me that we're pandering to a very small group and at the expense of the whole. It's going to lead to increased euthanasia of our pets. And I can see very little upside. As Councillor Ball did acknowledge, we live in an urban setting, and much of the danger to wildlife that is perhaps attributable to the whole will be far less in the inner city of Melbourne. So again, I think we're missing the mark here. Furthermore, all of these resources that have gone towards this program, we're locking up our cats when the real issue that we have here in Melbourne at the moment is unfortunately crime and safety. We see it in the streets of the CBD. We're seeing it in home invasions throughout Melbourne. We're seeing carjackings. I think we're putting our time and energy into locking up the wrong thing here. Locking up cats isn't the problem. We need to be locking up some people. Here at the City of Melbourne, we like to stick our oar into areas that perhaps would be deemed as state and federal issues. If we're going to do that, surely this is the issue where we should be stepping up. A state government that can't keep its citizens safe is ultimately a failed state. We could do a lot more here on this at the City of Melbourne in terms of advocacy. I'm looking at Dean and your team. I know you do a hell of a lot. I would not discredit you in any shape or form. You are fantastic. But we as a council here, this is where we need to be stepping up, not spending and wasting our resources and locking up cats. Thanks very much.
Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Yes, Councillor Rouse.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I'm a little bit baffled following that, but I think for those of you watching at home who perhaps don't remember them the last time this came into the council chamber, when we talk about the majority or the minority, I think the numbers, and I would happily be stood corrected if my memory does serve me, incorrectly, but 2 billion 2 billion native animals are killed not by cats in Australia, by pet cats. That is not tomcats that roam free, feral cats. This is pet cats. So I think the question does not resolve around which humans we're locking up, but it comes down to a question of, do we lock up cats at night, or are we happy and satisfied that we're going to kill 2 billion native animals? My answer to that is pretty simple. I would like to protect our native wildlife, and so therefore I will be supporting the motion on the screen tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Would any other councillors like to speak to this motion? I will briefly speak to this motion. As those of you following at home and those of you who are animal lovers may remember, we had a spirited debate on the topic of cat containment in this chamber on the 1st of April this year. When we consider that, we had the benefit of community consultation, and I want to note the overwhelming support from community members for this, which was certainly been quite influential in my view. 84% of our community supported this action. We've also heard, by way of submissions from a number of experts when we had this debate. But of course, the policy before us tonight, and rather the plan, the DAMP, goes well beyond this topic. I do want to thank all of those in the community who've provided further feedback in our community consultation. We've now had 2 rounds of engagement, 1,200 contributions, which just shows how both active and engaged residents are, but also how much Melburnians love their furry friends. And that is perhaps not surprising when we look at our animal registration figures. At last count, there were 8,000 pets registered in the city, a 35% increase in dog and cat registrations since 2020. And it is worth calling out that this council, in its budget, made the decision to make pet registration free for dogs and cats. That will apply to the next round of registrations in April 2026. We know that there are many, many members of our community who are passionate animal lovers, many of whom own dogs and cats, and they will take a real interest in this DAMP. So I would like to close by thanking our officers for their extensive work on this, and to those 1,200 people who took the time to provide their contributions. I hope you can see that that is reflected in this plan. Would the mover like a right of reply? All right, in that case, I will put the matter to the vote. Could all of those councillors in favour of the motion please raise your hands? Councillor Camillo, Councillor Rouse, Councillor Dr Ball, Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Scott and Councillor Griffiths. Could all those against please raise your hand? Councillor Guest, I declare the motion carried. We now move to agenda item 6.3, Normanby Road Reserve Expansion Project, Proposed Community Engagement Approach. Would councillors like a presentation on this item? Yes. I now call on David Callow, the Director of Parks and City Greening, to make a brief presentation.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor, and good evening, councillors and members of the public. Just wait for that presentation to come up on screen. I've got a short presentation tonight that just outlines the proposal to the committee regarding community engagement, but also a couple of updates on the park expansion project as well. That's all right. While it's loading, I might begin. In May 2024, this committee approved the Normanby Road Reserve to be the priority approach, thank you, to creating new open space in South Bank. And the Normanby Road Open Space project is a very high priority in the open space strategy. I won't read everything here on screen, but just highlight a few things for councillors' benefit. The park expansion project has the potential to create a new open space of 1.2 hectares and would service residents within a 500 metre walking distance. At the moment, the project is currently underway. We are undertaking feasibility and we're engaging with other landowners and managers within that area. That includes VicTrack, Yarra Trams, the City of Port Phillip, the Melbourne Convention and Exhibition Centre, and of course the Department of Transport and Planning. If we can go to the next slide, please. This slide here neatly outlines the scope of the project. On the left-hand side in orange, you can see the existing Normanby Road Reserve. It's a linear reserve between the Westgate Freeway and up to Clarendon Street. City of Melbourne also manages the triangular piece of land, not indicated in orange there, but is in the foreground near the Westgate Freeway. It's a Vic Track piece of land, but it is managed by the City of Melbourne. The proposal is on the right-hand side, and that would realise 1.2 hectares of new open space. The conversations we're having include those with Yarra Trams and Vic Track around the tram alignment, but also, of course, with DTP around Normanby Road itself. Normanby Road currently carries a relatively low traffic volume for the 2 lanes in either direction. The proposal that we presented to Department of Transport and Planning is to rationalise those lanes to the western side of the road, so you would still have north and south traffic, but that would be a single lane in each direction. And in some ways, it's similar to what we did on South Bank Boulevard a few years ago. Go to the next slide, please. So DTP advice is really important for this project. They are the land manager. It is an arterial road, and arguably the greatest benefit to this project would be through the rationalisation and reconfiguration of those road lanes. DTP is providing clear advice on a number of different projects that they won't approve or deny these sorts of proposals until well after Westgate Tunnel is opened, and they're saying to us at the moment that's probably mid to late 2026 before they'd be prepared to provide that advice and they'd seen the impact of the tunnel project. Next slide, please. So we are seeking the committee's endorsement tonight to commence community engagement in spite of not having that DTP advice. We think it is worth pushing ahead with this project. We have good community support. It's a high priority within our open space strategy. We're confident that we can engage with the community on the merits of this proposal and what they'd like to see within this expanded park without having to confirm the final project area. And if we could just go to the last slide. This has a higher level timeline of the project subject to the approval tonight, which is the box on the left. We would move to the first round of community engagement later this calendar year. There will be a second round of community engagement post DTP advice in mid-2026. That all going well, there would be a final concept plan presented to FMC next financial year, and then construction could potentially commence the following financial year in 27-28. And that concludes the presentation. Happy to take any questions, and back to you, Chair.
Thank you so much, David. Do councillors have any questions? Councillor Dr. Ball.
I do have a question, David. Can you give us a sense of how staff would approach the engagement, given that we are uncertain of the approvals, what DTP will ultimately permit? How will you ask for the public's input under those uncertain circumstances?
Great. Thank you for the question, and through you, Chair. There is good opportunity here to begin a conversation with the community about their aspirations for the site. We know the existing 2 parcels of land there would benefit from uplift, regardless of whether or not we can expand the park. So that's our starting position. There's a history of us taking this approach with a blank canvas as such. We did the same with Bedford Street Reserve, which was completed quite recently. So there is an opportunity for us to talk to the community about their aspirations for the space without having the final project area confirmed. So they could talk about the sorts of activities, the sorts of uses they would want to see in that area.
Yes, Councillor Dr. Ball.
If I could ask a further question, thank you. So the recommendation from management is 2 parts. It's to continue to proceed with the community consultation, but also to advocate to the ministers, relevant ministers. When do you the second clause is silent on when that advocacy should occur? Do you imagine you would do the community consultation and then use the feedback from the public to communicate to the ministers what the local residents of South Bank want in this place? Would it be the 2 aspects work together, or would we write with a W, ask the Lord Mayor to do that advocacy before?
Great question. Thank you, Councillor Dr. Ball, and through you, Chair. In my mind, that was a concurrent process, but I think the suggestion you've made tonight that perhaps that could occur after community engagement, I think that's worthy of consideration, and that's something that we could take back and have a think about.
Or both.
Or both.
I think that the motion as worded currently doesn't preclude the possibility of doing both, I hope. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Did any other councillors have a question of David? No. Thank you so much, David. I'm now going to ask for a motion to be put on the screen. Thank you. And I have a councillor to move that motion. Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. And a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Dr. Ball. Back to you, Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. And again, a pleasure to be moving this motion tonight. This is something that we know is very important to the residents and businesses down in South Bank, and I'm really looking forward to being able to see some progress on this matter. I do want to thank officers for the work that's gone into this. We obviously have spent a bit of time in this chamber during this term discussing how important it is to have a program of public open space that recognises the very fast-growing population that we have here in the City of Melbourne, and particularly recognises those areas which have expanded rapidly in the last few years and that are in need of more public open space. And South Bank is very much one of those spaces. I see that Tony Penner has had to head off, but I'm sure that both he and the other residents groups down there would want to see us taking up this debate as much as possible and making sure that there's a public focus on it. It's a key space that we need to be seeing some transition on. I'm very grateful to Councillor Dr. Ball there for her questions and to arrive at the what we might say is the taco response at the end of it all there about we could have hard tacos or soft tacos or maybe both. And the question is, why not both? Why shouldn't we be advocating now to the state government, and why shouldn't we be advocating when we hear from the local community about what it is that they want to be seeing in this space? Because as David's presentation showed, there's a really exciting amount of open area down there that could be utilised once we have some agreement from DTP and other groups. It's obviously a very complex space, as we know many spaces within the City of Melbourne are, and that list of other groups that we need to consult with was quite extensive, but all the more reason to be getting on with that, and all the more reason to be demonstrating to the local community that we are not just taking their requests for public open space seriously, but we are acting on our commitment to create public open space in that area. And so I hope that other councillors will be supportive of this motion tonight, which is to get the ball really rolling on some public open space improvements down in the Normanby Road Reserve.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. Over to you, Councillor Dr. Ball.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I'm happy to second this motion. I'm happy to go to the community and seek their goodwill in this process. We are frustrated too. Citizens of South Bank, if you are frustrated, we hear you. We are frustrated by the delays on so many fronts from DTP on getting projects we want done in a timely fashion. Of course, we are the migraine-inducing complexity of this site has been referenced by Councillor Griffiths. But ultimately, we need approvals from DTP for so many things and cannot proceed without it. And it's DTP's position now that we have to wait until the tunnel has opened, which is in itself a great disappointment. There is so much hanging on the opening of this tunnel, which I might add is due to open in December. So can I encourage those of you in South Bank to make the most of this opportunity to make your aspirations and needs clear to Council, and we will continue to do our best to advocate on your behalf for this great greening opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dr. Ball. Would any other councillors like to speak to this motion? No, in that case, I will speak to this motion. I'm also sad to see that Tony Penner has departed, but I'm going to attempt to channel him. South Bank is the most densely populated suburb in Australia, and its residents need every square of open space that they can possibly access. Not only would the expansion of Normanby Road Reserve unlock significant amounts of open space. It's open space that is so desperately needed. As we know, for so many residents of South Bank, they need to lead much of their lives in a third space, and that should include a third green space. The possibilities that this space allows are immense, but they also include the possibility of space to play. And for those families who are raising children in South Bank, that is desperately needed. So I share the frustration of all of those South Bank residents, but I do want to thank in particular Councillor Griffiths, who I know in the environment portfolio has been leading the charge for rapid delivery of parks in the city of Melbourne and understands very well the need for that open space for all of our residents. I commend this motion to my fellow councillors. In particular, I'm delighted to see that it calls on the Lord Mayor to write to the Minister. It is so necessary that the state government make changes that will allow us to move swiftly, that will allow us to unlock that space and deliver this desperately needed open space. And I am certainly looking forward to that response, whether it occurs before or after, at the same time as the community consultation. I am very, very hopeful that it is a swift and favourable response that will allow us to get on with this project. Do any other councillors wish to say anything? No. Would the mover like a right of reply? No. In that case, I put the motion to the vote. Could all those in favour please raise your hands? That has passed unanimously. That brings us to agenda item 6.4, City of Melbourne housing targets. Would councillors like a presentation on this item? No. In that case, I'm going to ask for a motion to be put... Oh, sorry. Thank you. Thank you so much, David Thompson. I will call on Chris Thrum, who has requested the opportunity to address this committee. I know you don't need to be reminded, Chris, but as you make your way to the lectern, I will remind you of what you know better than any of us. Please speak for no more than 3 minutes.
Thank you, David Thompson, for the situational awareness there. Much appreciated. We're here in the City of Melbourne Commons area for Fisher Melbourne Committee meeting on the 16th September 2025, and in particular, agenda item 6.4, City of Melbourne housing targets. We'll start with by acknowledging that we're on Wurundjeri country. I respect elders past and present, and extend that respect to any other elders that may be present in the room or viewers watching at home. Sovereignty was never granted. I'd like to also thank Sarah Lowcock. I'd like to thank Joe Cannington, of course, and Mr. Evan Council as well, Head of Strategy. Now, we need to test the scenarios of renewing and regenerating the public housing towers in the City of Melbourne. We need to be cognizant of the approach that the City of Yarra are taking towards the public housing tower policy of the State Government of Victoria. The City of Yarra is in opposition to the total blanket demolition of all the public housing towers. The City of Yarra have given the due considered opinion to the State Government that it should be taken where you have a site-by-site approach to these public housing towers. The City of Yarra is asking for the release of engineering data and analyses of each and every single public housing tower. On a personal note, I found it incredible that all of a sudden every single public housing tower is so decrepit that they all had to be demolished. That was almost beyond belief when we heard that coming down the pipeline. There's a human rights issue too here in regards to the strategy of hey, let's turf them out, smash them down, destroy those buildings, and put in shiny, bright new towers and bring in shiny, happy new people with money. I think we have to reconsider the human costs in all of this. We have to care about the community. We have to show a bit of love to those people. Further to Fisherman's Bend, we do need to prioritise, I think, Metro 2. We need to have that underground train line now. We need to have train stations under Fisherman's Bend now. We need the tram route now. I believe that the suburban rail loop is not as important as the Fisherman's Bend Metro 2 tunnel. I think there's more efficiency in terms of building the Metro 2 tunnel than the speculative approach taken with SRL. I acknowledge that an awful lot of work has gone into this report, and again, do appreciate the work that Evan, Joe, and Sarah have put in the council offices as well. But I really think there needs to be serious rethink into the approach with the public housing towers, and I really think we need to do a lot better there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Chris. We're grateful as always for your submissions, and thank you for speaking so passionately about such an important issue. I am now going to ask for a motion to be put on the screen. Just scroll down. Thank you. I'm just going to draw councillors' attention to an amendment which is just to correct a typographical error in the recommendation. I am going to move this motion and I'm looking for a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. And I am now going to speak to the motion. To start with, a little bit of history. As those following along may remember, in September 2023, the state government released its housing statement, which identified the need for 2.24 million homes in Victoria by 2051. The state government also set housing targets for individual municipalities, how it is collectively going to get to these 2.24 million homes. And the final target set for the City of Melbourne is 119,500 new dwellings by 2051. It's worthwhile pausing on what that number looks like. It means doubling our current housing stock. And when you think about how long it has taken us to build that housing stock, around 170 or 80 years, we are being asked to now make sure that there will be that same amount of housing stock built again, but not in 170 years, just 25 years. So the first thing that this Future Melbourne committee did was noted the need for work to be done to consider whether or not that housing target is even possible under the Melbourne planning scheme. That work has now been done. I want to thank Sarah, Evan, Joe and your team for your findings. That does conclude that under the Melbourne planning scheme in the City of Melbourne, that target can be realised. But it is worth noting that that analysis doesn't have regard to external factors, such as will the market deliver that number of homes. We know that there are 17,000 dwellings in this municipality that have been approved but haven't been built. And to my mind, what that says is that council, certainly not this council is not the blocker of development or the increase of housing supply. What we are seeing and what we are hearing is the ability for developments to stack up is not occurring. We are not getting shovels in the ground because developments are found not to be economically feasible. And that is the significant restraint on housing supply. So, as we face a housing crisis, as the state government tells us we need over 2 million new homes, in the City of Melbourne, we accept that 119,000 homes can be built under our planning scheme, that is possible. But I would encourage the state government to look at every lever it has to identify what is the block on housing supply in this state. To my mind, and what I hear time and time again from stakeholders across the sector, is that the real handbrake on meeting the challenge of the housing crisis is the tax settings in this state. And so I certainly hope that the state government will have a long and hard look at that, because it is not the case that councils, certainly not the City of Melbourne, are the blocker on housing supply. Having said all of that, if we are to double our housing stock, which would mean accommodating 229,000 dwellings by 2051, this council wants to ensure that is done in a way that doesn't compromise the livability of Melbourne. We are so proud of this city. It's a great place to live, and it should remain so over the next 25 years and well into the future. That's why this motion calls on the Lord Mayor to write to the Minister for Planning seeking confirmation on a number of matters, one of which is the work the state government is currently doing on development contribution reform. If we're going to have 120,000 new dwellings, we need to know how we are going to deliver the community infrastructure and the open space to keep Melbourne livable. It also calls for the delivery of critical public transport. I'm going to channel Councillor Philip Lelou here in noting that it calls for information about the delivery of the tram to Fisherman's Bend. That is so important for unlocking that open space, as well as rail connections to Docklands and Fisherman's Bend. I want to close by thanking our team. This is no easy feat to identify what needs to be done to double the housing stock in the City of Melbourne. I commend this motion to my councillor colleagues because it takes the steps that are necessary to make sure that if we are to meet that target, we don't compromise the livability of Melbourne in doing so. Over to you, Councillor Griffiths, as seconder.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I'm obviously happy to be seconding this motion tonight and following on from your thoughtful comments there about the challenge that the state government's metrics have put upon us and the hard work that the team have done under a very short period of time to enable us to respond thoughtfully and meaningfully to what is a big challenge both for the municipality and the city more broadly. And in some ways, the work that's before us here tonight, this motion, is a bit like a microcosm of the work that we've been doing on developing our council plan over the 6 months that we've been meeting as the new council group, as we start to think about what it really looks like to think forward to Melbourne in the future, what the needs of the residents and businesses, workers and visitors to the city will be, and how we deal with that massively expanded number of people that we can expect to have in the city, both living in the city, visiting the city, and moving around the city. And I'm very grateful for the work that officers have done to start to prepare this. And would echo many of your comments there, and particularly your channeling of Councillor Lelieu, who's not with us tonight, but again, the recommendations that are in the motion before us tonight about the importance of getting the public transport to Fisherman's Bend are absolutely vital, and a bit like following on from the motion we've just had about the importance of public open space in Normanby Road, where we've seen South Bank expand without sufficient open space. That's not the kind of mistake that we want to see occurring again. And so it's really important that we have the capacity as a council to plan for things like that, plan for things like the amount of revenue that we're going to need to be expending as we see Fisherman's Bend and Arden Macaulay expand. And obviously things like the North Melbourne Community Centre or Community Hub are a really good example of the exciting things that can happen in response to challenges like that. But again, in terms of things that are currently sitting in the state government's bailiwick, sitting on their desks at the moment, some of the planning scheme amendments that we've been asking for around things like sunlight to parks, around things like the sustainable building design, it's really important that we see those things getting passed as well, so that we have the tools and we have the levers to be making sure that Melbourne is a livable city right through to 2050, which is exactly the work that we're doing in our council plan at the moment, which seems like a reasonable opportunity to spruik to people that there is less than 1 week left to have your say on the City of Melbourne's council plan at the moment. It's a really important opportunity to help us make sure that our 4-year plan is reflective of the desires of the people of Melbourne. It goes to many of the matters that we're considering in this motion tonight. And if anyone is sitting out there wondering what they can be doing meaningfully with their remaining 6 days before Sunday the 21st, well, I would thoroughly encourage you to get onto the Participate Melbourne website and have your say on any aspect of the council 4-year plan that interests you, certainly around matters like this, so that we can make sure that we are building the city that people who live, who work, who own businesses and who visit the city want to see.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. Would any other councillors like to speak to this motion? No? In that case, I will put the motion to the vote. Could all those in favour please raise your hands? That is passed unanimously. That concludes reports from management. There are, moving on to agenda item 7, general business. There are no items of general business. Agenda item 8, urgent business. Are there any items of urgent business? No. In that case, we move back to public question time. There's 15 minutes for public questions, and I call on Chris Thrum, who I believe submitted a question that we did not get to in the first section of public question time. Chris, I invite you to make your way to the lectern to address the committee.
Do you guys have a slide for me?
while the team is finding that, I'll just remind members of the public there's a 15-minute period at the conclusion of the meeting to ask questions. Questions should be no more than 90 seconds in duration. Back to you, Chris.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor Rashina Campbell. In light of what Councillor David Griffiths said in spruiking people to participate in the City of Melbourne's Participate Melbourne in the plan, I participated in just yesterday, the Productivity Commission of the Commonwealth Government of Australia issued an interim report into harnessing digital and data technology. This is a disgraceful report. It is, the authors of this report should be ashamed of manufacturing a document which totally betrays the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Serious opposition to the Commonwealth Government's Productivity Commission Harnessing Digital and Data Technology interim report. We feel, the music industry and myself feel, that this is prioritisation of big tech over the copyright rights of Australian musicians, artists and writers. We're looking at a win-loss situation here. It's a win for big tech, total loss for Australian musicians. It is a betrayal of the Australian musical community. I support Music Victoria in its advocacy to reject this interim report. I support APRA, AMCOS and Natim Ismail in terms of their rejection of this as well. My question is, could the City of Melbourne recognise the extreme displeasure and total opposition to this report?
Thank you for your question, Chris. I'm looking to Deputy in the Creative and Arts Portfolio, Councillor Scott, to provide you with an answer.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor, and thank you, Chris Thrum, for your excellent perspective on this very important subject. I will answer this in short and then in a little bit more detail. And the short answer is the City of Melbourne is definitely aware of Music Victoria's statement, which was released on the 12th of August 2025 under the heading Protect Australian Music from AI Exploitation. And the statement puts forward the proposition that this policy or this recommendation from the Productivity Commission will enable AI companies to use copyright-protected music works without permission or payment for training their AI systems. And on a personal level, I can say to you, I had the pleasure of working for the Walt Disney Company in my corporate life for more than a decade in the consumer product and publishing licensing areas. I have complete respect for creation of content and the protection of that copyright. Worked a lot with people like APRA and other organisations in that role. So at a personal level, I completely agree with your outrage at what's happening here. I'll also go on to say that the City of Melbourne doesn't really have a policy role in this regard, but we certainly can have an advocacy role and definitely work with our industry stakeholders, like, as you suggest, Music Victoria, APRA, AMCOS, ARIA and other creative peak bodies. And of course, more importantly, through our arts grants and other support programs that we have, we can continue to support local creators. So I pledge to you, Chris, that in my next 3.5 years, I will watch this topic with interest and continue to try and support Australian musicians. I did watch, for example, the 60 Minutes program, which I encourage you all to watch, which featured a Melbourne icon in Tina Arena, who was complaining about this very subject, about the big tech companies stealing her copyright. So it's definitely entering the public debate. And on a personal level, as a councillor here, I will be trying to advocate for protection of Australian musician copyright. But thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Councillor. And I'd just like to add that the musicians and the music industry is very thankful and grateful for the incredible support that the City of Melbourne has given to musicians over a long, long time. I recall back in the days when Ivan Deverson was the mayor of the city of Melbourne. As Lord Mayor, Ivan Deverson was phenomenal in supporting the arts and musicians. So we do thank the support and the feedback from the city of Melbourne. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you for the passion that you bring to this topic. I now invite questions from members of the public. Would you please raise your hand if you would like to ask a question? Yes, Fana, could you make your way to the lectern? Fana, I know you know the drill, but could you state your full name? And questions should be no greater than 90 seconds in duration.
Fana Ammett from the traders at the Queen Vic Market. This is a question about forklifts. While I asked the question, I asked the councillors to consider areas of the city like the mall where we've got trams moving amongst a much bigger population, trams, 30 rhinoceros, moving amongst a much busier pedestrian traffic area than the market. Either the council or its company, the Queen Victoria Market Proprietary Limited, have planned to permanently remove forklifts from the traders at the Queen Victoria Market site by November 2026. Traders do not consider the alternatives currently available can function to meet the operational needs of the work on the site. Moreover, the alternatives will lead to even more manual handling work injuries to individual workers. It's a challenging work site involving significant heavy manual labour, and while it is a heritage destination, it is simply unacceptable to require traders to suffer further injury and have further shortened their work lives because they find themselves working in a heritage manner. Electric pallet jacks are not a reasonable solution. The decision appears to have been driven by a risk-averse management with little appetite to maintain forklifts but improve safety. Forklift operators at the site are professional, trained and fully licensed and have a terrific safety record on the site, despite anything you may have heard to the contrary. Nevertheless, traders are keen to improve safety for their own safety and the safety of others. Interactions between pedestrians and forklifts and other types of collisions are considered to be one of the major risks. For approximately 4 years, there have been AI-powered pedestrian alert systems that provide a real-time warning to forklift drivers when a pedestrian is within a certain range of a forklift. Such a system, if it lives up to its promise, would enhance the focus and awareness of an operator. It should be ideal for the work environment at the Queen Victoria Market site if used in conjunction with appropriate safety controls in an appropriately developed traffic management plan.
Fana, I'm just going to ask you to conclude your question.
So my question is, would council be prepared to fund a trial? We would look to put one of these systems on one of the busier traders' forklifts to enable that to be tested. So it would be between possibly around the $8,000 mark, $8,000 to $10,000 mark, and obviously we'd have to develop what the review of that trial would be.
Thank you so much for your question, Fana. I'm going to ask our CEO, Alison Layton, to respond.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor, and through you, thank you, Fana, for your question. I think in the first instance, this really goes to the operations of the market, and so the most appropriate thing for me to do is to raise your question with the QVM board and then come back to you either through them or through us with a response. That's the way the Constitution works, and I think that's the most appropriate next step. So thanks for raising the question, and I'll take that on board and come back to you in due course. Thank you.
Thank you. We still have a few minutes remaining. Are there any further
Can I ask a question of Fana? Is that
Uh,
possible? Just a clarification question.
Yes. Yes, Councillor Scott, you may.
You mentioned, Fana, that forklifts will be banned from November 2026. Is that right?
I don't know if it's banned, but they're not going to be operating at the site after that time.
Has there been consultation between management and traders in this regard? And do you feel that that's been appropriate and adequate?
I don't recall that there was consultation. I think a decision's been taken, which is why I come to council, because I'm not sure where the decision is made or how it's been made, whether it's part of renewal or it's very opaque to us. And I don't know that there's great understanding about the site, what's needed, the impact that will have on the day-to-day lives of workers, given that you're balancing health and safety obligations in various ways.
Thank you, Fana. I might ask the CEO to respond to that further information.
Thank you, Acting Lord Mayor. I do understand that there is consultation proposed as part of further work that the QVMPL are doing, or the company are doing. I might ask Mans Bassi, our Chief Operating Officer, just to expand on that somewhat. Thanks, Mans.
Thank you, CEO, and for you, Lord Mayor, Acting Lord Mayor, sorry. Fana, thank you. I have some outstanding questions I need to come back to you on, which you raised at a previous FMC as well. So, at the direction of the CEO, as you are aware, I am a shareholder representative on their board. I'm attending their board meeting on Thursday, which was where I was going to raise your concern around the invoicing systems. I'm happy to bring this up as well. My understanding is that there have been a few incidents in the market regarding forklifts, which is why a decision has been made from a WorkSafe perspective to look at alternatives. I'm not aware of a decision being made, and I'm also aware that consultation needs to happen before any action is taken. I'll commit to coming back to you early part of next week once I've had the conversation with the CEO and the chair and the board on Thursday.
I hope then that the recent correspondence that's been sent to councillors can be taken into account when any consideration of incidents at the site is considered. Yeah.
Thank you, Fana, and I'll take that on board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fana. Thank you, Mans, and thank you, Alison. Do we have any other questions from members of the public? We've got a few moments left. No. All right. I then move to agenda item 10. The closure of the meeting. I'd like to thank members of the public for their interest and attendance and declare the meeting closed at 7:06 p.m. Thank you so much.